Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Tariq Khalid. I'd like to welcome to our program here at Sharjah Media Corporation, Doing Good. And today we're talking about good, and we're talking about good people. And one of the most renowned persons of our nation, the UAE, United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Zayed Al Nahyan. May Allah bless and put Noor in his grave. Sheikh Zayed wasn't a person who, when you hear people describe him, even from I've talked to some people who were very young during his leadership as the president of UAE, and people said one very interesting thing about him. We considered him to be Baba Zayed. He was the father. He was like our father. And even before the wealth came to the UAE, that people felt that if Sheikh Zayed was there, everything was going to be okay. That he was going to do his utmost to help everyone and to assist them in whatever affairs that they may have and try to make things easy for them to live and for the nation to progress. I saw a very interesting interview with him. Unfortunately, I never got the opportunity to meet him, but he said a few things in this interview which were very interesting. The host asked him, he says, well, Sheikh, did you ever think that the nation would ever be as it is today? And he said, you know, more or less, what we're seeing today is a dream. This is beyond our fondest imagination, that what we saw, what we came from, just a very simple nation living in simple huts and tents in many instances, in a loose federation. At that time wasn't even a federation when he first started. Seven states, for lack of a better description, that we could never conceive of what we're seeing today could ever be something that we would see in our lifetime. And the second point, he said, more importantly, that all of this, what you see, whatever you see here today, which is good, it is only from Allah. It is only by Allah's permission that this has come into our hands. And then the consideration from this, he said more or less, and this is a trust for us. Allah has entrusted us with this duty and this responsibility. So in it is a test for us. And of course, we know from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ more or less about these things. And he said more or less that, subhanAllah, that the wealth doesn't come because of the rich. The wealth comes because of the poor. And what does that mean? That the wealth that wealthy people have, they think, well, you know, I've earned it, I've worked very hard for it, whatever set of circumstances that may be that they have achieved it, ultimately this is not the aim. The aim is that this has become a trust for you. And in that trust, you must use it justly for the other people. Not to hoard it, well, this is mine, okay? And when I can, I'll do this kind of thing. No. But this understanding that this is a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is a responsibility, that there is accountability for it, and there's accountability for the distribution of it and the use of it. So clearly, Sheikh Zayed, may Allah bless him, understood this. And as a result of that, the people in this nation till today love him extremely. If you hear particularly some of the older men who were among his peers at that time, and they will identify him as being someone totally different than the other people. And that his extreme love for the people and concern for them and bridging the gap of action along with this sincere intention. And as a result of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expanded his capabilities, meaning that outside of the UAE, many countries in the world were impacted. And it's not, many people would think, well, okay, this is an Arab country, you're in the desert like this, so you guys just impacted just the people who are around you, these small little nations who are around you. No, this is not true at all. Actually, the UAE, and through the efforts of Sheikh Zayed, has influenced people globally and literally east, west, north, and south. A brother came here several years ago. He told me a story. He said, to make it short, he said, some brothers came to him and said, there's some Arabs who have come here, and they know that I'm a sporting man. They said they're looking for some sporting goods. Would you help them? So he said, sure, I'll help you. So what do you want? He says, okay, let's go to sporting goods. He took him. So to make a long story short, he says, okay, thank you very much. We really appreciate it, but we want you to come and meet our father. He didn't know who they really were. He knew they were Arabs, they were wealthy people. So he says, well, he's thinking, he said, well, when I go and I meet this guy, I'm going to slam him, because, these Arabs, they have all this money, and, they do this, and they do that, they do this, so forth and so on, which is projected in the news of their mentality. So when they brought him to the place where there was a gathering of people, there was a gathering of people, there was a line of people, and he looked, and who was it? It was Sheikh Zayed. Sheikh Zayed had come for treatment. And the people were lined up, and he was greeting them, and he noticed he was meeting people, he was shaking their hands, and he was putting money in their hands. And at this time, he was astonished. He's never seen anything like this in his whole life. He was shocked. He said, I was shocked when I saw this. And so when it came my turn, I said, Sheikh, assalamu alaikum. He said, please forgive me. He said, Sheikh Zayed said, well, forgive you for what, brother? He said, I've had this impression Arabs are like this and like this, so, I was going to speak to you harshly, but I see what you're doing. He said, no problem, I forgive you. Now, what can I do to assist you? Can I help you in some way? As an example. So this is in the Western world that this happened. Now, this is a simple example, and there are many, many examples I've heard of people from all over the world, those who are here and those in other countries, about the impact that this man had, and of course, the impact that the UAE has had on other nations in terms of assisting the nations themselves and people individually in terms of their sets of circumstances, whatever that might be, whether it be on a corporate level or even dealing on the other side with charities and so forth and so on. These hospitals, schools, masjids, and all the common things that people need, agriculture, as an example, all the things that people commonly need to progress in a society, to move forward. So this is the year of Sheikh Zayed, and of course for the UAE, every year is a for the year for Sheikh Zayed, but Sheikh Zayed would have been 100 years old this year. So of course this becomes a special year for the UAE. And we wish that everyone, wherever it is that they might be in the world, can partake of this joy. And of course, we ourselves, meaning the people who live here and who have benefited from this experience, we have a responsibility of carrying on this work. And it doesn't matter where you're from or what kind of passport that you have. This is something that unfortunately that many people themselves have allowed themselves to be put in a box about. And it doesn't matter what language you speak either. Whatever language it is that you speak your language and talk to the people that will understand you. Because the real message is the message that our dear beloved Prophet ﷺ, that he brought. And every once in a while, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings up people in societies to remind us, to bring us back to what it is that we should be doing. What should be our real focus as Muslims globally. And people say, well, I live in a small town. I've met many people, and I've been in many small towns globally. He says, well, I live in a small town, and, it's just us and my family and, just a few people, and everybody knows everybody. So we don't really have a global perspective. We're not really into the media so much about what's going on in other places. Everybody's kind of busy with their own life, and we enjoy ourselves in that way. And that's... we can say close to perfect in relationship to the life that we're living in today's world, as hectic as it might be in most places. But we need to look at something, and UAE is an example of that in one way. And we're hoping that we continue to move forward progressively, and that we become an example globally for people of how to live together, how to obey each other, how to obey the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how to love each other, and how to endure and be tolerant of other people and their belief systems and their way of life, and also how to accommodate them and expose them to the dynamics of Islam. And ultimately, that should be our real aim. And this was the aim of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the capability to impact the hearts of people like no other human being that he had ever created. So if we think like this, and when I say we, the Muslims, and particularly the people of the UAE and those Muslims who are out there in the world, if we think in this dynamic, that I'm just a simple person, I don't have much knowledge, as an example about Islam, but I myself attempt to be the best Muslim that I can be. And that in itself become an invitation to other people to do good, to stand up for righteousness, to stand up for truth, for real faith. And of course, there is opposition to that. There always has been. There's confrontations in relationship to that. There always has been. If we look at all the prophecies, all of the prophets of their time and the era, we saw that they faced extreme difficulties and conflict. So in today's world, where do we stand? And I say the Muslims themselves, look at yourself today, see where you stand. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the best guide in the Quran, the best human being that he has ever created, Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a representative for Islam until the Day of Judgment. And throughout life, Allah gives us some people, if we're very fortunate, to have as role models, meaning that we're fortunate in the sense that we've had the opportunity to be around them and look at them and see their lifestyles and how they behave and how they have tried to inculcate these qualities in their life and be a living example of it in our time, so that we ourselves cannot say, well, I don't know anybody like that. I was not mentored. And many people say this, well, I'm an orphan, or I grew up in a society which was very evil, meaning the people that I was surrounded by were people who were doing a lot of bad deeds. And as a result, I became influenced by that. But we have to look at something we always have to look at something very closely. And that is our own heart. No one's heart is closer than your heart. So look at your own heart and see what is the condition of your heart. Are you satisfied with it? Is it the heart that is striving to come closer to Allah? Are you in denial about this? About who is Allah? What is Allah's requirement? Have you become comfortable with misdeeds and being disobedient to Allah? Or acting as though you don't believe in Allah because it's convenient for you to maintain your present lifestyle, and you're afraid, or out of fear, you're afraid to change, that your lifestyle will have to change, that you will have to lose something that you think that is important or valuable, and you can't see the value in changing your lifestyle. Many people have all of these things, and one of the major aspects of people not coming to Islam is fear. And of course, that is tiered, isn't it? But to resolve that fear, let's look at the other end of the equation, that we've had many people in our societies who have shown us that the transition from a life of forgetfulness and disobedience to the life of understanding, knowledge, wisdom and understanding, implementation of that knowledge, it is distinctly different. It is different as night and day. And we should not go by the people who forsake that, because there are always people who are weak. It's like anything else, like athletes. You have some athletes, they're stronger than others, they're faster than others, they're smarter than others. It's a very simple matter. We need to ask ourselves, where is it that we want to be with Allah? Do we want to shine? And this example that we're using, Sheikh Zayed al-Nahyan, was a shining example for the world, from this small nation, desert nation, to global impact as a representative of Islam, and how we should act, how we should interact with other people, how we should maintain our belief system and be comfortable in that, and allow people to be comfortable around us and comfortable in our environment, and let them see that Islam has a flexibility that makes life easy for all people if they take the time out to find out about it. Not listening to what is being projected by other people, haters. And as we well know, there are haters out there for everything. If you pay attention in your life, and it's sometimes very difficult to accept that if you're a person who strives hard for whatever it is that you believe in, haven't you experienced that people that you least would expect have become haters of you? That you found that they backbite you, that they talk bad about you, and of course, the essence of this is usually some kind of jealousy, and you have not attempted to take anything from them or want anything from them, but you're just focused on your goals and your aspirations? Has there anyone out there who hasn't experienced that? So why shouldn't we think that it's the same thing, relatively so, when we talk to the people about Allah? The belief in the one and only God, to worship him only. That in this, it distinguishes itself from every other thing that you can experience. That it's 100% good. No, we cannot conceive of that. This is the only thing that's 100% good. Imagine, because Allah has always been here and always will be here. He's absolute. So the person who strives to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a win-win for him. There's no loss in it. Whether we see it or we don't see it, whether we understand it or we don't understand it, just in talking about Allah to other people, we cannot imagine the impact that this has, what we see and what we don't see. If you don't believe it, try it. And I'm saying particularly to the Muslims out there, because many Muslims themselves are afraid to stand up and act as Muslims around an environment that's negative, or to even identify themselves as Muslims, let alone to talk to people about Islam. So I make one suggestion to everyone out there who's a Muslim. Make intention today that whatever environment you find yourself in, talk to the people about Allah and watch them. And watch sees what happens. There'll be some people who will be against, and some people for, and some people neutral. The minimum, that would be the case. But watch what happens after. And I guarantee you'll be surprised. And even in the most negative environment, that you will be surprised that someone will come to you one day and you says, I remember you gave this talk, you mentioned something to me, and it's impacted me. I want to know about Allah. And we wish this for the best, and especially in this year, the year of Sheikh Zayed, rahmallah, may Allah bless him and his family, and continue this blessing until the day of judgment. My name is Tariq Khalid. I'd like to thank you for joining us here at Sharjah Media Corporation in Sharjah, the UAE, on doing good, and we hope that this good spreads throughout the earth, and everyone who has an opportunity to see it is impacted to strive to do righteous deeds and enjoin righteous conduct. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.